that kind of then led to this crossroads moment of, do I stay on this secondment, extend that, or do I come back, work in private practice, kind of really graft it at that area of law and climb the corporate ladder? I chose the former because I had one eye on always wanting to get into the sports industry, break into an in-house team in any of those kind of major areas, AFL, cricket, tennis, Grand Prix. Went through a few interviews through each of them, and then the timing of the Grand Prix role was aligned to where I was currently. Put my hat in the ring, got the job, and kind of the rest is history.
Hello and welcome to the SportsGrad podcast, the ultimate guide to make it in the sports industry. I'm your host, Nathan Peroni, and on this podcast, I chat with people in industry and find out how they got hired into dream jobs in sport. If you want to know what people are doing to break in and grow their career, make sure to follow the pod and subscribe to our newsletter for even more advice. Or if you want to give yourself a competitive advantage in the job market and put your career on a rapid new trajectory, go to our website and apply for the next cohort of the SportsGrad Method Program. Here at SportsGrad, we've helped people land 840 jobs in sport, and a recent shout out goes to Jade Hallett, who has landed a role at the AFL working as a game development officer. Jade has really applied herself to the SportsGrad Method Program alongside other work experience, so congrats Jade, and enjoy being part of the AFL team bringing footy to local communities in Victoria. Now, coming up on the show today is Chris Grant, Principal Legal Counsel at the Australian Grand Prix Corporation. Chris is one of the few lawyers we have had on the podcast and provides a fascinating insight into sport law and his involvement working alongside major global events like the F1 Australian Grand Prix and Australian Moto GP. Chris has grinded away at his legal profession for many years and now finds opportunity to blend his passion for sport with his legal expertise. For many, contracts and law can be a challenging field to navigate, and Chris provides valuable learnings which listeners can take away whether you're a current professional or aspiring to work in sport. Chris is also a mentor in the SportsGrad Method Program and enjoys paying it forward to our community. So grab a pen and enjoy this chat with Chris.
Hey guys, Ruben Williams here, founder of SportsGrad. We'll be back to the episode in just a second, but I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about the SportsGrad Method Program, which has been helping people land jobs at major sporting bodies in as little as 14 days and doesn't require you to take out a massive debt to get started. If you are looking to make a jump into the sports industry, but nothing seems to be working for you right now, then why not apply for the SportsGrad Method Program? Inside, you'll get given a proven playbook and a one-on-one industry mentor, as well as access to the SportsGrad network, plus much, much more, all of which have helped people land over 800 roles in sport. If you're ready to back yourself and fully go after your career and not let life get away from you and wonder, what if I'd only given that a shot? Then you're the kind of person who we'd love to work with. So head to sportsgrad.com.au/program and you can apply to join us.
Chris Grant, welcome to the SportsGrad podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Big couple of months at the Grand Prix. Just finished and the Moto GP news. How's it been for you? Yeah,
it's been a really busy 4+ weeks. We had the F1 event obviously a few weeks ago, which was great. Record-breaking attendance again. The weather was amazing. The whole weekend went really well, save for Oscar putting it into the wall on a formation lap. But really successful weekend, and everyone's really still buzzing from it all. Yeah.
And accreditation-wise, I can see you've brought in a cred from the tournament or the event, sorry.
That's our 26 accred, and it's nice memories of what was a really great weekend, and everyone's been really complimentary with how everything went, and internally, we're really proud of everything we were able to achieve. Yeah,
I can see on there you got, was it 12 zones?
Yeah, there's 12 zones. Probably can't do this justice like our venue operations team will, but different access for different kind of people, personnel, staffing. It's pretty highly secured accreditation into our venue, as you can appreciate, with so many different facilities and access points, and
fantastic. We'll get you hanging that up later in the house alongside all the other accreditations. So thank you. As you may know, we like to start the pod with some quick fire questions to get to know you a little bit better and set the tone for the conversation. So firstly, what inspired you to work in sport?
First of all, having a passion for sport is I guess an obvious one. I've spent a lot of my life playing footy, still stupidly playing at my age, but something I've always loved, and the camaraderie and friendships that come along with it. I think sport brings everyone together, no matter your background, age, sex, ethnicity, and I think that is really special. It creates this really beautiful environment for people to be whoever they are, and to get to know each other and get to know other people. So that's kind of what spurred my passion for sport is everything that creates, and then having the chance to do what you do professionally in that industry is, I guess, just a bonus.
Yeah, for sure. Love it. First ever job and first ever sport related job?
My first ever job was actually at a pet supplies store serving or what I thought was a pet shop, but was actually a pet supplies shop. So there's no pets. I was just serving, selling bird feed and kangaroo meat. And then I graduated to then a butcher shop and then to Hungry Jack's. So it was almost like this perfect
a great start to your career.
I guess with sports, I've been actively involved in my footy club, the Oakley Crushers, on the committee, and I guess that was my first taste of behind the scenes in sport. But then really working at the Australian Grand Prix Corporation was my first proper job in sports.
Yeah. And after high school, I've seen there's a bit of extra study, which I'll dive into a bit further, but what extra study did you do at a top level?
Yeah, so went to Deakin University, did my Bachelor of Laws there, and through that I was able to do some brief exchange programs overseas. So I did a exchange program in Shanghai as well as Denmark. So they were just great, 6-week blocks that I could go overseas and learn a couple intensive subjects with some really great people who I'm still in touch with now.
Beautiful. One interview question you were asked to answer for the job you're in, or a question you like to ask people that you hire?
I think maybe the second one, particularly in in-house environments, cultural fit and your ability to work together as a team is probably paramount. There's probably a fair level of expectation that you will be competent at being able to do the job if you're applying, and there's a number of candidates, particularly in our industry. It's mainly can we get along? How do you fit well in our team? So maybe a question around how they work as in a team, how they work independently, how they manage their time, because they're all things that are really important, particularly in a small in-house environment.
Yeah. Book or podcast recommendation that's helped your career?
Maybe podcasts. I think the Imperfects, which probably good timing because I know Ruben's just done an episode, is one that I've resonated with a lot, probably for my own personal mental health reasons, just because I think they cover some really important topics, and having the doctor on the podcast as well, deep diving into some really interesting areas, I think is really important. That's helped me just understand a little bit about my own mental health, and I think that naturally comes into your professional life, particularly in the legal industry. Yeah.
Have you read Resilience Project, and that's what got you onto Imperfects as well?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the natural pathway. But also, they're three great blokes who, you feel like you're sitting around the coffee table listening to them speak. So yeah, really, really great podcast. Yeah,
like you said, Rubes actually recorded with them yesterday as we're recording, and from what I understand, it's coming out in a couple of weeks from when this is released. So make sure to keep an eye out if you're listening. And lastly, if you could try another job in sport for a day, what would it be?
This was a tough one. I think anything, maybe football game day related. I'm a big Doggies fan. Shout out to the 2016 Premiership. So I think just being a part of the game day hype that everyone kind of gets involved, from the club doctors, physicians, and all the game day staff. I think the atmosphere of preparing and executing a game day, say at the G with 100,000 people, would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. You get just as many people at Albert Park, so
yeah, we do.
It's pretty good. I want to start the conversation going back to, I suppose, the grind that it is to be a lawyer. I think a lot of us would probably hear and get an understanding of takes a long time of study and a lot of internships, paralegals to really get to where you need to get to. So I suppose, firstly, what made you want to be a lawyer before we even get to that?
Yeah, I think I have always, found it interesting and exciting working with other people at all different levels, and getting to know people and their problems, and communicating effectively, helping get to a solution and solving a problem that naturally lends itself to the legal industry, where you're effectively getting paid to be a problem solver. So that was what I guess originally drew me to the industry. There was also a fair degree of, like probably most 18, 19-year-olds, you don't really know what you want to do. So, you kind of think back on some of the subjects you enjoyed in high school. Legal studies was one of them. I was fortunate enough to get into law. So like, let's see how that goes. And then it's really only once you're progressing through your degree did I really realize, okay, like this is something I do. I think I want to do. But then even then, it's like until you finish your degree, you get a job, you start working, is when those things start to really unravel.
Yeah, for sure. And so speaking of that, so you had 3 university degrees from, I could see, legal assistant, vacation clerk, intern, paralegal. Do you want to speak about how that all comes about and why? I know you just spoke about the time overseas on exchange, why that was important for you and how that really helped get to where you've got to as well.
Yeah, I think I used my time effectively at uni. I did straight law, so I didn't have a double degree, which extended my time at university or gave me, I guess, more experiences in other areas. I kind of, fortuitously or not, put a lot of my eggs in the law basket. So I was heavily involved on the Deakin Law Student Society. So that in of itself created opportunities and also made me, network with other students who were in years above me and learn from what they had done and what helped them get those clerkships and grad jobs. So for me, traveling overseas, as much as it was a resume filler, it was also a lot of fun and gave me great life experiences. But getting involved in as many paid and unpaid legal opportunities that I could see, that was through community legal centres or paid work that I had throughout my studies, as well as being involved on the society, just meant that I was involved in more extracurricular activities, which I think bolstered my experience, which naturally then helps you get those jobs when they're hard to get amongst your peers. Fortunate enough to do a couple clerkships, which then opened the door to getting a graduate job.
Yeah. And from a timeline perspective, for those that don't know, what does it roughly take from the minute you start uni to then probably finding a first full-time lawyer position? Yeah,
so you apply for what's called clerkships often in your penultimate year of your studies, and some do it in their final years, but it's mainly in your second last. So I did a 4-year degree, so in my 3rd year, you go through that process, which for those listening or who've been part of it or will about to go part of it, good luck. It's a really intense time, but it's one that doesn't, I guess, make or break you as a person. It's just, unfortunately, these firms only have a limited number of spots that they accept, and there's many, many different pathways to getting to where you want to go in time. So, it was in that second last year that I went through those applications, got many rejections. Many probably didn't even open my resume and kept moving forward. A couple did. You interview, you land them, you do them over the preceding 6 or so months. And then I guess as you're finishing your degree, offers come out. I got the offer at Minter Ellison, which then meant the following year I started that in March.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And did you learn much around sport contracts, sport law during these years of study as well?
No, I never, at Deakin, we didn't have any sports law courses or subjects. It was really just a passion for yourself to kind of go out and find. I think at that time, as a student, you're really grinding and hustling to get a job. So you're not too picky and selective. It's really trying to land the clerkships and then convert that into a grad job. So once I did that, I guess the areas of law that I was put in, or the practice groups I was put in on those vacation clerkships, like that's where, you're really starting to understand what being a lawyer, being a corporate lawyer actually looks like. It's very different to, what the textbooks say and what the lecturers, talking about, versus being, in the hot seat and hearing and seeing, partners and other lawyers go about their business.
Yeah. Okay. Now I want to jump to AGPC, so Australian Grand Prix Corporation, where you got your job as legal counsel, the first gig in sport. How does the role come about? And secondly, can you just tell us about the governance of how the Grand Prix is actually managed and structured? Because I think a lot of people wouldn't realise some of that structure and how it's run publicly as well.
Yeah. So I think how that job came about, there was a job ad that got posted. I had actually reached out to the then legal counsel previously for another role that was advertised that wasn't quite at my level. And I guess, that's a good tip, that reaching out, cold messaging people on LinkedIn, expressing your interest, having a chat, putting a bit of effort into them getting to know you, then helped me a year later when she reached out and actually sent me the job application. So already that kind of felt like that gave me a little bit of an edge against those that were applying, because it was more at that time more tailored towards my PQE level. And obviously just went through an interview process, and which we can touch on later, and got the job. But the governance at AGPC is quite interesting. We are a government agency. We're created under statute, so we have an act called the Australian Grand Prix Act, which gives us the ability to host and organise the Formula One event in Albert Park and the Moto GP event in Phillip Island. And what that means is that we have a responsible department that we sit under, which is DJ SIR, or the Department of Jobs, Skills, Industries and Regions. I hope I've got that right. And means that we are answerable to government and to the public as any other public agency is. So that comes with a lot of really interesting nuances, particularly our interface with the community, and also ensuring that we are, as we are taxpayer funded, we using those public funds for good reason, and we can show that and demonstrate that as well. We then have, I guess, the interface with Formula One or Dorna, who are the rights holders for Formula One and MotoGP respectively, and we've got a contract with both of those parties to allow us to host both events. So that's a really interesting relationship where both of those contracts have all of our commercial rights included within, and what we can and can't do, and how we're to run and promote the events. So that needs to be carefully considered in parallel with obviously our responsibilities as a government agency, as well as then our loyal customers and fans who have either been with us for 30 plus years or have just jumped on, and then all of our suppliers as well. The events industry is quite small, and we have got some really great partners and suppliers that help us, deliver what we do each year.
Yeah. So being the government agency led, is people from state government involved in a lot of these major decisions, or it's like we trust everyone under the AGPC name to act on our behalf?
Yeah, I think we definitely have a lot of interface with the Minister's office. So Minister Demopoulos is the sports minister. So we do a lot of work with his office to make sure that we're working as a team in parallel. And that's probably above my pay grade in terms of like how we do that at that top level. But we've got a great relationship with the Minister's office and also DJ SIR, and we work really well together. I think as any government bureaucracy, there's always how we do things versus how others on the other side might see it. But we've been fortunate to be doing what we've been doing for a number of years now, and as hopefully people will see, the event has just gone from growth to growth, and we're really proud of what we can deliver. Yeah,
definitely. Now you've got multiple promotions since joining, obviously starting legal counsel, senior legal counsel, and now you're principal legal counsel. Tell us about how those promotions come about, and I suppose how proud as well you are to achieve those promotions in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I think one, legal counsel to senior legal counsel was a genuine promotion, and that's, I guess, more likened to maybe going to a senior associate position. So that's extremely proud career milestone to get to that point. The recent change to principal is more of a role alignment, so less of a promotion per se, but more so just an alignment to our role within the organisation and aligning to other roles. But I think what it means is that that transition to senior position comes with senior leadership responsibilities, management of others as well in the team, but also manage being a leader in the business and helping the business make strategic decisions and how we go moving forward and future proofing our events. And some of those things have been really great to be part of and part of those discussions. And our senior leadership group is fantastic. Some really amazing minds and creative minds that I get to work with each day, and to be part of that room is a really great feeling.
Yeah. And tell us, what does the structure look like within the legal team? And then I suppose more broadly, how many employees are we talking?
Yeah. So I'm part of the legal and strategy team. So from the lawyer count, there's 5 of us in total. There's our chief legal officer, 2 principal legal counsels, 2 senior legal counsels. One's currently on an internal secondment. We've also got a paralegal supporting us. And then on our strategy arm, we've got ESG, procurement, and part of our kind of pit building redevelopment project as well. So all up, I think there's 10 of us, which so kind of half and half from a legal and non-legal, and then amongst the broader business is about 100-person headcount.
Okay. Yeah.
Across different departments like commercial operations, corporate affairs, marketing, business services, etc. Yeah.
And everyone's essentially employed to manage both events too. No one's really employed to focus solely on one event or the other.
Correct. Yeah, we we're really fortunate to work across both events, and I think that's really, really good for us too.
Yeah, for sure. What does an average month look like for you? I know everyone says, say, what does day to day, but I just know that's not going to be an accurate question.
Well, it depends what month you're asking, because if it's March, it looks very different to what May looks like. But I think maybe I can give you 2 answers. So outside of event period and then inside. So outside, which we're kind of now in, the next 6 months is all about planning ahead. We're already talking about the 27 event, which is scary. We're already, thinking about Moto GP in 2026. Obviously, it's our last event, so we want to go out with a bang, and I can give you more detail on that as well. So really, it's some of our large procurement activities that take upwards of 18 months to go through a process. Any debriefing and planning for next year's event that we want to start actioning and start looking at now. We consistently want to get better and better and learn from feedback we get either from our fans, from Formula One, or within, to see how we can continually improve. So that takes time to digest, as well as some of the more BAU governance work, reporting government policies that we're mandated to report on, and any other, I guess, special projects that don't fit neatly in either event but are critical for our business. So last year we amended our legislation. That was a 2-year process, and that was a lot of work involved from a lot of people, but that didn't really sit in a bucket of either event. It was just like more of a governance, an AGPC related project. So
I understand. That's
kind of our non-event time period. And then event period is obviously, we scale up massively before each event. Using F1 as an example, we were down in the park working from pretty much the start of January in temporary offices, and at that point we're finishing all contracts, finalising any negotiations, supporting each of the event critical teams in their delivery. The event build, which takes a number of weeks to complete, as well as partners that come on, and branding and assets that need to be approved, competitions, working more closely with Formula One, on their expectations, and balancing what they want versus what we want, and finding a solution. And then once the circus arrives, then delivering the event and welcoming all our fans. So,
And what are the departments you're spending probably the most time with? I imagine everyone probably wants a bit of your time to manage their own contracts and procurement and whatnot. But what do you find is more prominent than others?
I think definitely our commercial and operations / infrastructure teams get most of our kind of attention. Commercial from a sponsorship point of view, so negotiating sponsorship agreements with all of our partners, as well as the interface with Formula One and what, as I said, what kind of their rights are versus ours, and how we massage that and work with our commercial team to ensure that we're getting the most that we can. As well as operations and infrastructure. A lot of our supplier contracts come in that space. Security, traffic management, grandstands, temporary build. These are the suppliers who, without them, the show doesn't go on. So those contracts and relationships are really important. So that they often then take the most time to negotiate, depending on when they're up for renewal.
Yeah. And are you doing, when you mentioned working with F1, is there some really early mornings, late nights, knowing this is a global event and they are on the other side of the world as well?
Yeah, I think we typically do it it's at our night time, their morning time. So, really it's only when we're meeting with Formula One that we'll have those kind of out of hour meetings. All of our other suppliers are local. I guess our commercial team probably deals with some sponsorship teams from a global level, so they might have some out of hour meetings, but traditionally when we meet with Formula One, it's our evening time, their morning time, which I'm sure in a perfect world we would be more aligned, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I want to just do a deep dive into the Grand Prix itself firstly. So from your end as a lawyer, what does it look like come event week? I know when you came in, we were speaking about how you're on the grid just before formation lap and Oscar crashed out. But yeah, tell us, what does your role look like? Because I imagine there's not as much legal work to do in those event days.
Yeah, you're not reviewing contracts at that point.
No.
But for those in like business services part of the business, which legal would sit under, we don't have an event critical role per se. Our lead up is obviously paramount in terms of finalising contracts, providing that advice, managing any issues and in lifetime, and then post when naturally things come up, and whether with contractors or customers, we have to work with those teams to support a solution. But in event time itself, we often transition into different event roles. So I was fortunate enough to go on a 2-week secondment to our venue operations team. So that team manages the entire venue when it's operational. So from ingress and egress, everyone coming in and leaving safely. That includes traffic management, security, accreditation, emergency services, and safety as well. So I was part of that team where I supported the mainly security operations interface, and which was great. It's not every day that a traditional lawyer can step into a operational role and get some really great experience there, and then that experience is invaluable for us to then come back and share that with the other members of the team who kind of did other things, to then full picture understand when you're doing these contracts with these suppliers, actually understanding on the ground how it plays out, how the relationship is, what the deliverables are, as opposed to just like a bunch of words that I've got to try and formulate.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think what we do really well is give people in the organisation that opportunity to branch out, do internal secondments, either at event time or otherwise, which just gives our experience another level and really gives that full roundedness.
And is that something that they come to you and say, hey, look, Chris, we've got this on the table, or you're going and saying, I want to work in this area if it's possible this year?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. There's I supported that team at Moto GP last year as well, so naturally it made sense for me to do it again. But really it's kind of driven at our chief level amongst in our people team around what roles need filling and what people internally can do that, as opposed to then going out and finding people externally.
Now, I understand the most recent negotiation for Albert Park retaining the Formula One race was just before you started. But can you maybe shed a little bit of light on how that negotiation may have come about, if you have any knowledge from how that is going? And also, is there already planning in place? This is something that's agreed till 2035. I think that's correct.
37, yeah.
Or 37, yeah.
Yeah. So it was, significant contract extension, 15-year contract extension in 22. So I was just in the organisation when it was getting finalised and signed off, but not part of the negotiations, which kind of were many months in the making beforehand. But I understand a little bit about how we got there, and to have a 15-year contract extension is huge. It provides the business with a lot of long-term planning abilities as well. You can plan, you've got tenure, that's key. Particularly when you're negotiating long-term contracts with suppliers, you can give them the comfort of tenure as well, which helps reduce rates and everything. So commercially that works. It also works for our investment into the event as well in terms of infrastructure and our long-term strategy. So that was really important for us and for the state as well. The event brings in a lot of revenue in our hospitality and tourism industry, which is significant. So really great outcomes for us. I think what it meant was there was a changed kind of landscape in our commercial relationship with Formula One. So it just meant that when the new contract kicked in, which was this year, our some of our rights and revenue streams were different. So it just meant that we had, a good couple of years to plan for that and then execute, which we did for this year. So I think everyone's really happy with how that ended, and now we're in the new contract era till 37. So we're out of the kind of transitioning out of one into the new and solely into the new contract now, and that's been really great. Yeah.
And is that something that they would look to plan like in the coming years? It's like already negotiating for 2037, or like how?
I wouldn't think so. I don't know if. We've still got 10 more years, 10 more events to play out. So I
know it's a long way, but
yeah,
some of these major events, when you're talking 15 years, like you can't just turn around and pull that together in 6 months, kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think in time that will come out. And I hope, and I'd hate to see the event ever leaving Melbourne and Victoria. I think it's got a real home here, and I know it's come from other areas, but I think the home for Formula One is in Melbourne, and we and at Albert Park as well. The backdrop and scene of the event when it's fully built, and you've got the palm trees and the city in the background. I don't think there's much better advertisement for Melbourne than that. And it's pretty special that we can have. I think we're the only city in the world that hosts a Formula One race and a major tennis Grand Slam event as well. Plus we've got the MCG. So I think that's why we're the sporting capital. Yeah. But I'd love to see the event stay in Melbourne forever.
Do you get a chance to cross over and learn from other legal departments that run other F1 events around the world? Or do you know, like, if these agreements like ours exist, and I imagine there's ownership in different, structures of how the races come about with privatised venues versus not? Do you get much experience learning about that?
I think we've got to be pretty mindful. Like, these are very commercially sensitive contracts with Formula One. So other promoters, we're one of, 24 other promoters. So it's likened to the AFL and all the clubs, is somewhat similar. So we don't have, because of those commercial confidential restrictions, we don't have like a side chat with our, colleagues at the British Grand Prix and go, oh, hey, like, do you have this onerous clause in your contract? That'd be nice. But no, we've got relationships with other promoters, mainly from a fan, delivery and experience, and maybe massaging through some of the challenges that each of us have as promoters, but nothing that falls into the commercial realm for obvious reasons. But I think it's important for other promoters to have those relationships with each other. We're not actively in competition with each other. It's so we welcome. I know this year I think we had colleagues from the Canadian Grand Prix, Singapore, and then vice versa. A lot of the times we will have people at different events as well, and it is great to learn from each other. I've been fortunate enough to go to a couple events myself overseas, and take photos. You bring back some things that look great, or even some challenges that you see, and all of that is just information that can be used for next year's planning. And I think it's all great information to have. Yeah,
definitely. And this last one on the Grand Prix itself, with it continuing to just grow and grow, does the legal team see growth and new roles coming about as well?
I'm not sure. I think we went through a period of growth a couple of years ago. When I joined, that was a new role that was created. It wasn't replacing another person. So and then since then we've expanded as well. So I think our current makeup seems right for now. But I guess in the future, if we take on more events and grow further as a business, then there's always opportunity to scale. But I think at the moment we're pretty settled. And we've got a great team.
Awesome. So next one I want to jump onto is the Moto GP. Now, a lot of people know that this is sadly the last year at Phillip Island. So do you want to maybe just speak about what the company is doing to really make this a big last event down at Phillip Island?
Yeah. So naturally, we were obviously really disappointed to lose the event. I think for those who have been, know how special it is. Phillip Island is a beautiful place to visit, but also the circuit, the fans, the riders, everyone loves it. It's one of their favourite circuits on the calendar. We get that consistently from the riders. To lose that is a hard pill to swallow, but I genuinely wish Adelaide all the best in pulling off what's going to be a pretty extraordinary street circuit, and I think if that does all go to plan, it's going to look amazing. So good luck to them. And what it does is it gives us a real, opportunity to send off Phillip Island for the locals, for Bass Coast, for the fans who have been really loyal with us and stuck with us through all of the years. So we are busy planning already. We've already just announced that the Australian Superbikes, which is the Australian Premier class, will be racing competitively in their championship at our event. So that's already an impressive draw card that will go along with our Moto GP 2 and 3 classes. Yep. So already our on-track activities has been bolstered, which is great. Get some great Aussie riders on the grid too, and then off-track and the entertainment and the fan offerings we're really going to go all out. So I guess watch this space. Register your interest when it comes out, get a ticket, sort your accommodation, just get there, because I think it's going to be one to remember, and hopefully for everyone working it, a really lovely send-off as well.
Yeah. And what does that look like, again, speaking to your role? How does that change from, I know you said you did the secondment and venue ops as well. I've also heard from people at the Grand Prix that you go get housed down at Phillip Island for a period of time because it is not very local for a lot of people.
Yeah.
What are the main differences?
I think it's very much a collegiate kind of school camp vibe. We, as you say, we were fortunate to get put in homes for the week. So I was in house for 2 weeks. So I think my housemates were sick of me by then. But 2 to 1 weeks, depending on what team you're in, or sometimes longer if you're part of the build. It's a real collegiate vibe. We have breakfast together at on circuit. We have dinner together. It's really nice to get to know your colleagues from a different level and also get around each other. I think it just creates a really different environment to work in, and similar. Often those in the business services space will do kind of get shuffled around different areas to support event critical roles. I'd probably imagine I'd do something similar again. But it's Phillip Island. It's an amazing place, and when the weather's kind, there's probably not many better places to visit.
Yeah. Do you think it's a massive part on the culture of the place and coming together? I know from my experience in previous roles that where we've had chances to travel to like Tasmania with work, that was like the best thing to just build relationships and helps you work more effectively together and enjoying each other's company. Do you find that as well?
Absolutely. We actually do this really special, event each night that one of our much loved AGPC stars runs, called Unsung Heroes. So each night at dinner, and when we're all eating dinner together, he's collated some kind of little stories throughout the week and days of those who have gone above and beyond and done something really special, either for another colleague, for a fan, or just general, and gives a shout out to those individually. And it's a really nice special moment that brings everyone together. We can share the wins, share the losses, the heartache, the funny mess ups that at the time was super stressful, and now we can laugh about it, and it just brings us all together, and that's a really special feeling too.
Do you ever go down and use the go-kart track that's next door?
We did last year actually. I must have had a faulty go-kart because I only came 6, but that was it's actually in the exact same layout.
I've done it before and heard that. Yeah,
so it's a good way of learning the circuit when you're on a little go-kart. But it's great fun.
Do they use it as a space to tap into for fans to then take over that area, or activations?
Yeah, it turns into our campgrounds. So just on that little grass bits around some of our campgrounds. So it's not operational during that time, luckily.
And I suppose it's on the announcement to SA as well. How challenging was it internally? Is this going to have implications, unfortunately, on jobs and stuff in the future? Whatever you're able to shed light on. Yeah,
like I said, we were obviously disappointed for all the reasons I just said. We love going to Phillip Island. It's a great event for a number of reasons. To lose it is really sad, but we've got the opportunity to deliver an unforgettable event this year. As well as then very much, go quickly into F1 27. So all of that, I can't see anything changing, at least in the next 12 to 18 months. We've also, as part of our recent changes to our legislation, have the ability to host non-motorsport events as well into the future. So that's something that we'll now, actively start looking at with government to see what other events we can look to host and organise. And if that happens, in the future, then, I can't imagine anyone, if anything, we'll need more people to help.
Watch your space. some of these are just more like for the insights and interesting facts I just want to try to find out. And again, I've learned a bit more from the legal space, like I spoke to you before, around just the challenges and the long-term negotiations that can really go on. Just firstly, how do you find a balance between AGPC's viewpoint on a contract when you're negotiating, what you stand by, your values, what you're not willing to negotiate on, versus the other company in procurement that they may want X, Y, Z? Where do you find that balance to really hopefully come to agreement successfully?
Yeah, it can be a challenge. I think depends on who you're negotiating with, what form of contract it is, and how important it is, for lack of a better term. Understanding what's your non-negotiables. So say there's 10 issues left at play. Like, out of those 10 issues, what are our absolute showstoppers? We cannot accept these 3 things no matter what.
Yep.
And then trying to understand what their equivalent is as well. Because if you can understand what theirs are, then there might be a couple that you're prepared to compromise on, to give the feeling that, you're the one who's being reasonable, you're the one who's looking to finalise this contract, and all they need to do is kind of follow suit. That part is often the hardest, because you don't know what their risk allocation and tolerance is as well. Yeah. Often getting in on a call, hearing their rationale, so kind of putting it to them, why do you want this clause to be removed? What's your explanation? What's your alternate wording and drafting, is a way of finding out that information. If you send a contract over, it comes back redlined with no comments around why they want things changed. I often push back and want that rationale, because if there's a good enough explanation, then we're very happy to accept that and negotiate and form a compromise position. That's reasonable. But if it's just blanket, we don't like that clause, then that's not really acceptable. So finding a little bit more about why they don't like something worded how it is, what's some alternate wording that they would be prepared to accept, are we happy with that? And going through that, kind of dialogue, often via Teams, is a really easy way of actually reaching agreement, because in-house teams are generally not under-resourced, but are at capacity a lot of the time. We don't have time, particularly in the lead up to the event, to be negotiating over every second word. It's really what's important, what's really core and material for both sides, and generally you can get there pretty quickly.
Yeah. And from a process perspective, say a department like the commercial department gets a contract, and it's coming from the business, the sponsor. Are they then going through on their own eyes, sort of giving a rough idea of this stands out as a red flag, this is fine, this is good, and then they're approaching you, and then there's a internal conversation, and then you're approaching back to the business? Is that generally what the process looks like? Yeah,
so we hold the pen on all contracts that go out, no matter, I guess, what area of the business, but they will take a template contract, they'll fill it out as best as they can with, the kind of commercials. We'll then have a look at it, tinker it depending on what needs to be changed, issue them a version that's ready to be sent to the other side. Once that other side reviews, they've got their proposed markups, they'll send it back to that contract manager. We often get them to do a first review. Particularly, a lot of the times the comments and markups will be in the commercial section, which not always legal per se. And then we'll sit down with them and go, right, we'll look after the front end, the conditions of contract departures. But what are your thoughts on what they've changed to some of the commercials? Are you happy with this? Are you not? Yep. We'll get their feedback. We'll then, produce another version, send it back. And then at that point, you kind of start going through the dance with the other side around, accepting changes, not accepting, proposing alternate wording, maybe having a call, reaching agreement, and then, preparing execution versions.
Yep. Yeah. Something I find impressive from the lawyer we have at TGI, and no doubt it'll be the same for everyone, but how you're able to just learn and absorb all this information from different parts of the business that you will have no expertise in, but you're able to understand it and compartmentalize it to then get to an agreement. How do you find that? Is it a massive challenge to then get thrown a commercial agreement and an event agreement, all this jargon that you may not know, but you're just almost forced to learn about every department of the business? Yeah,
I think it's probably one of the best parts of working in-house is that we have this like bird's eye view of how the whole business operates. We're not in this silo of just worrying about, this one department and what we do as this one department. We see everything across all departments. So sometimes that's, helps us and hinders us, because we'll start to go, oh, hang on a minute, that's flagging something that the operations team were talking about, but the commercial team's trying to do something else, and then we'll kind of marry them up together.
Yeah, okay.
And we are pretty good at collaborating in the business as well. So that doesn't happen very often. But I think really what it means is we have to then, learn more from those contract owners and those, I guess, subject matter experts. So we don't profess to be experts in areas outside of the legal team, but having a genuine interest in learning more about a sponsorship agreement, or how they're going to activate at the event, and what they're going to sell, and what they're going to produce, and what that's going to look like on socials, etc., is important to ask questions, to learn, to understand from those contract owners. And then say with operations and infrastructure, where really technical, scopes and build deliveries for some of these hospitality facilities or grandstands or other temporary infrastructure. Again, understanding, leveraging the experience we have in-house from those areas to really try and understand as best as possible what's meant to be delivered, what's meant to be built, so then we can help formulate that. So it's definitely, it's one of the most interesting parts of being in-house, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have an example of what the longest contract negotiation you've seen? You don't have to name names, but timeline?
There was one last year that took most of the year to negotiate. I think depending on which way it's done, the commercials were kind of locked down pretty early, and then it was just translating that into a contract that was agreed by both parties. But that's probably one of our longest contracts that we have, and with a large supplier as well. So naturally was going to come with a lot of back and forth, but really pleased to see that get executed, and then on to the next ones.
Yeah, awesome. Want to talk about AI and the impact on the legal world? ChatGPTs and the like can certainly help with digesting tender documents and things I've seen in my experience. But how's it impacting your work? And can you sort of clearly pick out when you see an agreement or comments that someone has just used that?
I think I'm seeing it more often in customer complaints. People don't get rid of that double dash, so it kind of that's one giveaway. But I'm seeing more sophisticated feedback and complaints from customers, which then naturally, by the time it gets to us, means that we've got to be really considered in our response as we would in any event. But not so much in contracts. I think what AI is doing in the industry that I've seen, particularly in-house, is just making you think about how you do things differently. How can I do this task more efficiently? Is there a tool that will condense the time that it takes? As I said, in-house environments are often kind of stretched for capacity, for resourcing and budget. So is there a way I can do this in a quicker time frame? Like, it's as simple as that. We're starting to leverage tools like Copilot more, which a bit of a helping hand when you've got writer's block and you're trying to draft a clause and you want a bit of almost peer review, to kind of the more sophisticated programs that produce case law and others. So I think for us, we're definitely on a journey. We've one of our team members has got a real passion in that area, so she's really driving the business's compliance and uptake of AI, because obviously in our space we've got to be really careful. We don't want people using random tools that haven't been kind of vetted and approved. Particularly government have got more stringent regulations as well around AI compliance that we have to follow, and I think our job in the legal team is to just manage that appropriately, slow down sometimes, understand what these platforms are, how they're storing our data and information. Are we comfortable with that? Is that being handled correctly? Working with our IT team. If it is, great. Let's do a safe rollout. Let's see how it goes. But we're definitely trying to find ways of how to do things better. As simple as that.
Understandable. Yeah. And from a sport professional learning sense, so we're talking people that are trying to get into industry, people in industry, how do you think people can improve their legal knowledge without having a background in it to improve their negotiations and relationships with lawyers like yourself?
Yeah, I think it's just having an interest. These contracts, once the contracts are executed and negotiated, there's often a tendency that they sit on a shelf and they collect dust. We really want to empower the contract owners to understand what those obligations are. Not every clause, but but understanding the key obligations around performance of services or delivery.
Yeah.
What are the deadlines? What's the scope and spec? What are you actually paying for? Any milestones, expiry dates, options, things like top level that any contract owner should be able to understand and work. We don't want to be coming in at the very end, once all these milestones have been missed or performance hasn't been managed, to then do something about it. We want to be actively engaged earlier from the contract owners who have got that kind of foresight and proactiveness to manage it. So first of all, it's understanding what those key commercial terms are, having a genuine interest in wanting to minimize risk and deliver that particular contract as best as possible. Often these in-house teams would love to have people come by and ask questions. I don't think you're going to get an in-house lawyer that's going to say, no, I don't want to talk to you about managing your risk or assisting you. So leaning on your in-house teams more. We have organised and facilitated lunch and learn sessions, particularly around consumer law training, but also how to manage and negotiate contracts, the processes, how to ensure contracts are validly executed, all those things. So I think it's just being curious, asking the question, and leaning on your in-house teams who ourselves often get external resources from our external law firms that we can then share as well.
Yeah. And from your time with Oakley and the footy club, do you find there's many aspects of contracts and law that you could learn as a volunteer on committees as well?
I think so. It depends what your kind of role is. I think I was previously kind of heading up the sponsorship arm.
Yeah.
So, working, negotiating with small businesses to get money and give them benefits that they see an investment for their contribution. So that's effectively what our commercial team does, but just at a much, much bigger scale. There's also advocacy work around, getting grants and other things, which is a form of transient experience as well as being part of a team, a committee, negotiating, putting your viewpoints forward, organising events, all those things. So I think any way you can get into sports, really through grassroots is often the easiest. These community clubs are screaming out for help and assistance. Doesn't have to be legal per se, but it could be just around joining a committee and just supporting from governance point of view, or from helping them drive sponsorship as well.
Yeah. No, it's very sound advice. Thank you. Now, I want to jump away, and something I found when I just searched your name on Google was you were at a panel for the 2024 ANZLA Sports Law Association conference in Sydney. Just want to speak about what this experience was like for yourself, and I suppose how valuable that association is for people in your world across Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah. So ANZLA is a fantastic organisation that creates a lot of really interesting content in the sports law industry, from player advocacy, doping tribunals to events, sporting clubs, organisations, etc. I went to the conference a couple of years ago, spoke on a major events panel. I think there was a lady from Brisbane 2032 speaking about how they're going organising, and another kind of major events panelist as well. So that was fantastic. First time speaking at a large conference. Had a lot of colleagues from cricket, AFL, tennis there. Great to connect with, I guess, our like for likes at other organisations, particularly in Victoria, around what their challenges are, what how they're going and how they're facing certain things. So I think that networking piece is awesome. But just meeting like-minded individuals who have clearly got a passion for sports law, and it was pretty. I felt myself a little bit of a fraud being up there, but something I was really proud to deliver as well.
Yeah, awesome experience. I also saw that you were named on the program a finalist for the Lawyers Weekly 30 Under 30 Sport and Entertainment 2024. Yes. How does that come about? What does that mean?
It's just so Lawyers Weekly do a 30 Under 30 finalists and awards every year in most categories. So there's 30 categories. As the name suggests, and you've got to be under 30 to apply. I was really fortunate to be named as a finalist, and I guess was probably a nice, owed to my career journey to date to get to the point where I was, having gone through private practice, secondment, landing the job at Grand Prix, building my career there and then being recognised for that as well.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Congratulations. I know you didn't win it, but congrats. That's awesome to be part of. I thought it was a very interesting fact. Want to dive more into the problem side, the challenges people face in industry and you would have faced as well. What do you think it makes it difficult to get a job in the sports industry?
It's probably as simple as supply and demand. There is, a large number of interest and a small number of roles. In our team, like I said, there's only 4 of us lawyers in total, and I, hazard a guess that we would receive more applications than roles if we were to advertise tomorrow. So there's that simple reality. But equally, I think there's probably a tendency that people maybe overthink that part, that because there's not enough jobs, I'm not going to bother applying. I think it's just how you apply, how you put yourself in good positions to get those jobs, to get foot in the door, to get an interview, to get a phone call. It's what I did to get those clerkships. It's what I did to get the job at Grand Prix. It's what Ruben and the SportsGrad community kind of sing from the top as well around how you go about it. Because there's definitely opportunities that exist, like I said, at a community grassroots level all the way up.
Yeah.
It's just how you go about it.
Have you ever felt stuck or lost from a career direction sense? And if so, how did you decide what path to take?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I definitely have. I think, and if anyone says that they haven't, I think they're probably lying. So, particularly in the legal industry, you go from going through your high school days to get a good enough ATAR to get into law. That's kind of the first box ticked. You then get into law at whatever university, and then that starts your process of really grinding, getting legal jobs, paid or unpaid, volunteering, other experiences, to then land your clerkships. That in of itself is a really intense process. You then do a couple clerkships. You've got, it's part of the Hunger Games. You 1 to 30. If you're lucky, you survive the 3-week internship with no issues. You might do a couple, you might do a few, and then you want to convert at least one of them into a grad job. Great, you got the grad job. Phew, I can finally relax.
Yeah.
You start the grad job, you're 1 of 30 again. You then go through your rotations, 6-month or 12-month rotations in different practice groups, front end, back end, other advisory areas. You then need to work out, well, what do I want to practice in? Because I've only gone through 3 practice groups, and now I need to effectively choose my pathway for in my next stage in my career. That then takes a bit of hustling and grinding to make sure that you get placed where you want to go. So you do that, great. I'm now in whatever team. I can then settle. But now you're the, little fish in the ocean again in this practice group. You're now creating your own brand within that team, making sure you're working with good people, the good partners, the good SAs on the good work. All of that takes time and effort. You then get to the point where I then was like probably at the 3 PQE level, where I've just gone through that whole process, haven't taken a breath, haven't looked back once, and you go, is this now what I want to do? Because from that whole point, you haven't really had the time to look back, smell the roses, and actually ask yourself, like, is this what I want to do? You kind of, and maybe I'm generalizing, but in the legal industry, you're just fighting for that next thing, because that's what you should be doing, right? Like, you got to get a grad job, you got to go to this, go to that. So by the time I got to probably that 3-year mark, I looked around and went, do I now want to be a construction lawyer indefinitely? You look at the people a couple of years above you and go, is that the lifestyle I want to live? You're then on the road to becoming an SA or senior associate. You want to be a subject matter expert in an area. Do I want to do that? Do I have enough interest in this space to be an expert that these, corporate clients pay a lot of money for your advice and support? So all these things kind of catch up with you, or they did with me at least at that point. And I guess really fortunately, I then went on a secondment to the Department of Education, who was a client of ours. And that kind of gave me an opportunity to refresh a bit, try something different, which was more likened to an in-house environment where we were supporting other areas. And I think at that point that then made me realize that there's other things out there. And I think some of my skills and traits were maybe better suited in that environment. And then that kind of then led to this crossroads moment of, do I stay on this secondment, extend that, or do I come back, work in private practice, kind of really graft it at that area of law and climb the corporate ladder? I chose the former because I had one eye on always wanting to get into the sports industry, break into an in-house team in any of those kind of major areas.
Yeah.
AFL, cricket, tennis, Grand Prix. Went through a few interviews through each of them, and then the timing of the Grand Prix role was, really aligned to where I was currently. Put my hat in the ring, got the job, and kind of the rest is history. So, I guess my advice would be that anyone who will get to those challenges, I think it's important to take a breath, take stock. The next decision you make isn't the decision that you make for the rest of your life. It's just the decision you make for the next period of your life. And for me, staying in-house on secondment was for that next period, that 12-month period, which then led me to getting the job at Grand Prix. And that's led me to be in the position I've been in for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice for in and out of the legal space, definitely. Do you think it is better to be a generalist lawyer than an expert in one field? I imagine there's pros and cons to both, but
it depends on what your interest is. I think for me, I knew in myself that I didn't have that passion to be a subject matter expert in the construction industry solely, but I enjoy it enough to still practice in it, on a day-to-day for our infrastructure team. But I also enjoy working with our commercial team or learning about intellectual property or about media rights or other areas that I've had to learn and become more of a generalist. So, I mean, it's horses for courses. It depends on the individual. Some people, then, love an area of law so much that they become a King's Counsel and a barrister, and that's all they do and all they live and breathe. Good on them. That's great. Other people, are generalists like me, and I think those skills are really transferable as well from, in other non-legal areas where, you've got enough baseline information and knowledge to help influence other strategic kind of conversations as well.
Yeah, understandable. I know you've spoken a bit about the journey, but when you've landed your jobs through the course of your career, and maybe speaking more to the sport roles, what do you think's made you stand out? I know you mentioned the network and already reaching out, and a year later that coming about. But what do you think's made you stand out the most?
I think being able to properly communicate that you're a good team player, you're a good person to work with. I think in the sports industry, the barriers are broken down a little bit more. There's less hierarchies. There's more, working independently, working with others. So I think your ability to work efficiently and effectively as a valued team member is paramount in those organisations. Also being able to communicate plainly. In the legal space, if I'm giving someone a 10-page advice when all they want to know is, can I do this thing or not? That's not going to be helpful for anyone. It's going to take time away from what I should be doing, and also it's not really giving them what they need. So I think being able to turn your mind to what is the problem I'm trying to fix and how am I doing that is an important skill that I think I was able to I guess show through interviews that I possessed that. I think really it came down to how well I can communicate to others in the business, my ability to manage multiple, work at once and do that efficiently, but also be, a valued team member and being able to, roll your sleeves up when you need to. I think all of us in the event space particularly can say that they've done jobs that they've never thought they would ever do, but that's led to amazing experiences and also creating great relationships as well.
Absolutely. Mentors, influences, we like to speak about some of those. Have you had some major impacts from mentors in your career so far?
Yeah, definitely. I think particularly in the legal industry, but I guess anywhere, it's leveraging those. Getting as much out of them that you can, because these are experts. They're people who are 10 years, 5 years, 20 years ahead of you. They've been in your shoes before. They know some of the challenges and how they've overcome them. So yeah, I've got some amazing mentors that I had at Minter Ellison, and then as well at the Department of Education, and then more recently at Grand Prix, where I'm very fortunate that I've worked with some really great leaders who have managed me, and I still have those relationships with them today. I'm very fortunate to have, and it's great to keep in touch with them and to keep those relationships going. So I think that would be another piece of advice, is that once you have these relationships and you've created them, it's up to you to then nurture them and to grow them and to maintain them. Because I've never had anybody that I've looked up to or been that's been a mentor to me say no to a coffee catch up or grabbing lunch or having a phone call. But often it's up to you as the individual to kind of stoke that fire and to maintain that relationship, particularly if it's quite a junior to senior role.
For sure. And speaking of, you're also one of the SportsGrad mentors for the SportsGrad Method Program. So can you tell us about what that entails and why you chose to volunteer your time to mentor as well?
Yeah, I think part of it's giving back. As I said, have been very fortunate to have great mentors throughout my career journey to date, and it's something I'm passionate about. I've always really enjoyed mentoring other junior lawyers or soon-to-be lawyers who have come through either in private practice or at Grand Prix. I'm passionate about giving some of my time to helping them in their journey, knowing what I know, having been through it. It can be quite challenging at times. I think having someone who's done it before giving some astute advice, with a grain of salt is really beneficial. So I've really enjoyed being a mentor to Joel. I reached out to Ruben. I said, hey, I love what you guys do. How can I get involved? And he linked me up to Joel, who is a lawyer in Tassie and loves the F1 as well and his footy. And it's been great. We catch up around every month for about an hour. We talk about how he's going, what he's up to, where he's thinking of his kind of career trajectory, what I've been doing, some of the matters I've been working on. And it was really great. We actually got to meet each other at the F1s. He
Awesome.
came over with his family and had a few great days there, and we caught up, and it was really nice full circle. And I look forward to keeping in touch with him moving forward, and potentially mentoring others as well in the future.
Well, thank you for your support. We appreciate it here. Now, this is a bit more of a reflective question, going back to trying to land a job in sport. But if you had to go back in time and someone said, I'll give you $1 million if you can land a job working as a lawyer in sport, and you've got 30 days, what would you do?
First of all, I would find out if it was any job in sport. Then you could be. This is the lawyer coming out of me. I'd just go to a local footy club and say, hey, do you want to retain me as a lawyer and cash my check? But I would find out on LinkedIn who what kind of teams are out there, who are the lawyers for these organisations. I'd reach out to them directly. I'd organise a time to try and catch up with them, either in person or over the phone. And then I would express to them like my interest in joining their team, what I can bring to their team. So often, come with, I guess, a solution. This is a problem that you might be looking to solve, and I'm that problem solver. Yep. Because that they then go, well, I'm now getting something out of this. I'm not just giving someone a job to make them feel good. I genuinely have a problem that needs solving, and this person has magically fallen from the sky and is that problem solver. Yep. So I guess, first of all, identify who those people are, identify if you can what challenges they might be facing, and then put yourself in a position where you can be the problem solver to that challenge. That then kind of, in a roundabout way, unless there was an advertised job, could be a way of circumventing an application process and getting your foot in the door. I think particularly with AI, I'd hate to imagine the state of resumes and CVs and cover letters that are getting submitted and how doctored they are, and how that, like, if they have the same kind of human touch that they might have previously. What you can't mask is a face-to-face interaction, a coffee catch-up, a phone call. You can't AI that yet. So I think putting yourself in a position where you can actually show them who you are, as opposed to what a bunch of words say that's probably half been done by ChatGPT, is a way of, again, putting yourself above the others, that here I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I can help do, this is my experience, and this is how my experience can help you. that's how they go, cool, like I can see myself working with this person. I can see them helping on this project. Because selfishly, we all have got problems that need solving at work and not enough time to do it.
Yeah.
If you can put yourself in a position that answers both those questions, then maybe I've got a job for you.
Love it. Very good. Biggest pinch me moment working in sport?
I think it's probably hard to go past. There's probably two. There's one where I've been very fortunate enough to support some of our Make-A-Wish and Starlight programs at our event. So these are individuals who unfortunately have got really significant health issues. They come to our event. They get kitted out in merch. They get given some really unforgettable experiences. They get to meet drivers, teams, garage tours, being a part of that and helping just facilitate, that in the background and seeing it firsthand is pretty special. It's stuff that, stays with you forever, and to play a very, very small part in that is something that's pretty incredible. That's a pinch me moment, because
sure.
what we do is on scale, and but to see it and to see how much it means to some people is really special, and also the kind of fan engagements that you have throughout the time, and seeing how much it means to them and going, wow, like I helped do this. I helped my small part contribute to this. Like that's really special. And then I guess from a physically pinch me moment, being on the grid 5 minutes before lights out, where all the drivers are in the cars are roaring, the mechanics are running around scrambling, you've got the crowd that's roaring in the background, music's blasting, the track is hot physically, that is like an adrenaline filled moment that you'll probably never be able to replicate unless you're running out on grand final day to 100,000 people. But that feeling of kind of in the arena before the chaos is a pretty impressive feeling. And again, very fortunate to have been on that. And yeah, it's a moment I guess I won't ever forget.
Yeah, both very special moments. I like it. What do you think your life would look like if you hadn't pursued a career in sport?
I don't know. I think what I do know is that like it would be just as good as it is now. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to find the perfect job, the perfect this, the perfect that. We've managed to work it out every time that we've to this point in life. So I guess I would have had confidence that I would have somehow worked it out then if it wasn't a career in sport. I was fortunate to be a part of two really amazing organisations that I was sad to leave, but was part of my journey and going down this pathway in sports. So if I stayed at either organisation, I would have had a lot of fulfilment and my career would have looked different, but I think I would have still had a lot of enjoyment out of it. So it's hard to say, get the crystal ball out, but I guess I've got faith that whatever's next or whatever, could have been, is going to be positive. And I don't really believe in any back steps in your career. I think every experience is really important and helps set you up for the next thing and the next thing after that.
Yep.
So
enjoy the journey. And the last one is our question from the last guest. So our last guest was Anthony Alsop, and his question to you is, which sport is going to have the next F1 Drive to Survive glow up, in your opinion?
Wow. Well, I think a lot of sports have tried. Drive to Survive was very much the first of its kind, and now it seems it's an extremely oversaturated market now.
Yeah.
But one thing I've said previously is the MotoGP riders are out of this world. They are crazy. They are these tiny riders who ride upwards of 360 kilometers on a bike that, there's no halo, there's no, safety, as much safety as there are in cars. They fall off, they crash, they roll around, and they jump up and they get it back on the bike and they go again. They are some of the most fearless operators that you see. They're also pretty fast and loose, which I think lends itself to probably some entertaining footage. Their English is not as good, so I think it'd have to be dubbed. But I think if you got in the face of some of these riders and some of the battles that they have, some of the rivalries, the Spanish and Italians absolutely, worship this sport, and they bring this amazing vibe and atmosphere that, we see firsthand at Phillip Island.
Yeah.
If you put that in front of the screens, I think, you'd get a lot of interest.
Yeah, okay. Watch that space. Moto GP, Drive to Survive. And lastly is the question from you. So what was a question you would like to leave our next guest?
That's a tough one because I'm not sure who the next guest is, but, maybe describe to me what a perfect day at work looks like. I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, love it. Very good. That's all from me, Chris. I just want to say it's been a pleasure chatting. Like I said, the legal space is, I think, a little bit untapped, and I think some people turn a blind eye to it and just think that experts like you will manage it all, but I think it's a really important part that people need to learn in sport, out of sport. Really appreciate all your advice, your experiences, and we'll look forward to seeing you around the SportsGrad circles with all your mentor work, and thanks again.
No worries. Thanks for having me.